The assassination of John F. Kennedy was a topic of controversy for over 5 decades. Was there actually a conspiracy? On Friday, November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was publicly assassinated while sitting in a car in a motorcade through Dallas, Texas. Kennedy was struck by 2 bullets, with the second being a fatal headshot. Governor John B. Connally Jr., who was in the car with JFK, was also hit in the shooting, but survived. Officially, there were 3 bullets fired by the gunman. The horrifying act was caught on film by a man named Abraham Zapruder with his 8mm film camera. The film, now referred to as the Zapruder film, would later go on to be integrated into the investigation as it allowed for frame-by-frame analysis. The shooting occurred from the 6th-floor window at the southeast corner of the Texas School Book Depository, a building along the motorcade route. The official ruling was that the gunman was a man named Lee Harvey Oswald. 2 days after the assassination, Oswald was killed by a man named Jack Rubb at the Dallas Police Department. In fact, that shooting was broadcast on live television. There are many who have criticized the motorcade route, believing it to have an unusual amount of turns, which would have caused the motorcade to have to slow down. The route was chosen by Secret Service agents, Winston G. Lawson, and Forrest V. Sorrells. Secret Servicemen sent in advance to check out the route noted that there were over 20,000 windows overlooking the route. But since they didn't have enough men to station at every window, they opted to inspect none of the windows along the route. 1 week after the assassination, the newly sworn-in president and former vice president, Lyndon B. Johnson, created a commission to investigate the circumstances of the JFK assassination and subsequent killing of Lee Harvey Oswald. This commission was to be headed by Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren and staffed with other esteemed officials. While the official findings of the commission believe there was only one shooter, it does have one thing in common with numerous conspiracy theories: the shooter was Lee Harvey Oswald. And with that, let's get into the main theory, which is the official ruling by the Warren Commission that Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated JFK alone, with no conspiracy involved. Let's get into the background of Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald had been in Russia in 1959 and had tried to renounce his American citizenship. Oswald had a history of violence from a young age. He became qualified as a sharpshooter with the M1 rifle. Oswald, a Dallas resident, was actually under active surveillance by the FBI office in Dallas. However, the local FBI strangely did not inform the Secret Service about Oswald. This is especially shocking considering the fact that Oswald was employed at the Texas School Book Depository, a location right along the motorcade route, from where Oswald would eventually fire the fatal shots from the southeast corner of the 6th-floor window. However, to be fair, the Secret Service did not inform the local FBI office of the motorcade route either. So, this was a mishandling on both of their parts. They didn't clue the Secret Service in. The rifle was found hidden near the 6th-floor window, as well as 3 bullet cartridges matching the 3 shots heard. Furthermore, Oswald unquestionably also killed Dallas policeman J.D. Tippit with a revolver approximately 45 minutes after the assassination. This is backed up by eyewitness testimony, and also due to the cartridge cases found at the scene, belonging to a revolver on Oswald at the time of his arrest, among other things as well. With all that in mind, it seems pretty clear that Oswald was the shooter. However, many have wondered if Oswald acted alone. Unfortunately, due to the fact that Oswald was killed by Jack Ruby, we may never know for sure. And while it should be noted that the Warren Commission found no evidence that Ruby or Oswald was part of a conspiracy to kill the president, it's natural to wonder if Ruby may have killed Oswald to keep him quiet. The Warren Commission was firm in its belief that Oswald was the sole shooter. To examine that, let's take a closer look at the scene of the crime, and more specifically, the bullets fired. The Warren Commission believes that there were only 3 bullets fired with these 3 subsequent results. The first bullet missed, the second bullet hit JFK in the neck and also hit Governor Connally, and the third bullet was the fatal headshot. The second bullet, in particular, is the most controversial, and the Warren Commission posits it hit both JFK and Connally. This idea is referred to as the magic bullet theory. The commission theorizes that from the 6th-floor window, the bullet entered through the back of JFK's neck, exiting downward, then entered through Connally's right side of his back, then entered and exited through Connally's right wrist, and, finally, ended in Connally's left thigh. They even concluded that the nearly full bullet found in Connally's stretcher was this second bullet. The main point of contention is that many believe the trajectory from the 6th floor window is impossible. Yet, computer renderings of the event have shown that it is indeed possible when you consider that Governor Connolly was sitting on a lower seat than Kennedy, and also when you consider their body positions. That being said, we do find it hard to believe that this so-called magic bullet would be nearly intact after traveling through two bodies. Interestingly, the Warren Commission claims the magic bullet theory is not integral to their theory that Oswald was the sole shooter. However, when you examine the frames of the Zapruder film, it shows that there was not enough time for Oswald to fire 2 shots within the time span that JFK and Connolly were first hit. Basically, if the magic bullet theory isn't true, then there had to be 2 shooters. Let's also look at the testimony of James T. Togg, a spectator along the motorcade route who claims that a stray bullet hit the sidewalk near him and a fragment of that bullet struck him in the cheek. There was in fact a mark on the sidewalk that, according to the Warren Commission report, could have originated from the lead core of a bullet. This potential stray bullet is noteworthy because Togg claims this stray bullet was actually the second shot and not the first shot, which is particularly damning to the magic bullet theory, which posits that the magic bullet was the second shot and the missed bullet was the first. So either Togg misinterpreted the situation or there were more than 3 bullets fired. Furthermore, in the 1970s, a new acoustic research technique was used to analyze the audio of the shooting, which found 6 points in the audio that could contain echo patterns similar to those of gunfire. There's even supposedly footage of the JFK assassination from an angle different than the Zapruder film. This alternate footage reportedly shows a now infamous grassy knoll in the background. People who have seen the footage claim to see anything from puffs of gun smoke or a second shooter located on the grassy knoll. However, this footage has supposedly gone missing. Cynthia Nix Jackson, the granddaughter of the person who took the film, sued the US government for $10 million in 2015 for the return of the film. Apparently, this film has not been seen since the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1978. This committee, by the way, was formed in 1976 to conduct an investigation into the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. Why it was formed is of particular interest. The House Select Committee on Assassinations was formed after a Senate committee confirmed that the CIA had purposefully withheld information from the Warren Commission investigation. The information withheld involved plots to assassinate Fidel Castro. The House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded in 1978 that scientific acoustical evidence established a high probability that 2 gunmen had shot at JFK. That being said, let's get into some conspiracy theories, and trust me, you're gonna want to stick around for the last one. The first theory is that Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson had JFK assassinated for political gain in power. Before Kennedy was elected, LBJ had attempted to take the Democratic nomination from JFK at the 1960 Democratic Convention in Los Angeles. According to the book The Death of a President, Lyndon B. Johnson asked the president to continue doing part of his old job as Texas senator. Lyndon B. Johnson no longer had political control of Texas, which was an important swing state necessary for JFK's re-election. As a result, JFK reluctantly went to Dallas to try and solve the Texas political crisis. Texas was Lyndon B. Johnson home turf, and JFK felt Lyndon B. Johnson should have had it handled. LBJ's right-hand man had actually been warned by a high-profile Texas lawyer named Byron Skelton that the political climate in Dallas was not safe and that he feared for the president's safety, but the president was not informed, though this information was also received by other officials close to JFK, including JFK's brother Robert Kennedy. One incident that proponents of this Lyndon B. Johnson theory point to involves a woman named Madeleine Brown, who claimed to have an affair with Lyndon B. Johnson. Brown claimed that she attended a party with Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon and J. Edgar Hoover the night before JFK's assassination. She claimed that Lyndon B. Johnson had whispered into her ear, quote, "After tomorrow, those Kennedys will never embarrass me again. That's no threat. That's a promise," end quote. I will say the quote seems a little on the nose for me. Why would someone say it so specifically when they're trying to pull off one of the biggest coups in history? Lyndon B. Johnson was on the Texas trip the night before the assassination, where his movements were heavily documented. Therefore, it's not possible that this exchange with Madeleine Brown happened. Furthermore, while there is evidence that LBJ wasn't happiest as VP, there is nothing to support the theory that he had JFK assassinated. He even helped form the Warren Commission. The second theory is that the Russians were behind President Kennedy's assassination. Obviously, there was tension between the two nations during the Cold War. Lee Harvey Oswald had tried to defect to the Soviet Union before, and some theorize that he could have been acting as a KGB agent. Oswald was also inexplicably at the Russian embassy in Mexico City a few weeks before the Kennedy assassination. Though, it's worth mentioning that Oswald would not be a smart option for the Russians to use since he would immediately cast suspicions on Russia due to his well-known Russian ties. The third theory is that the mob assassinated Kennedy. 3 different mob groups separately claimed that they were responsible for JFK's assassination: the Chicago mob, the Miami mob, and the New Orleans mob. As Attorney General, Robert Kennedy had made moves against organized crime, possibly angering them. Jack Ruby, the man who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, was a Dallas nightclub owner who some theorize had mafia connections. Some even believe that the mob was working in collusion with the CIA to carry out the Kennedy hit. In 2015, an imprisoned former mafia hitman named James Files claimed to have been the second shooter in the assassination, saying he was part of a plot in collaboration between the mafia and the CIA. However, there's no evidence supporting this. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of the mob and CIA theory comes from JFK's supposed ties to Sam Giancana, the head of the Chicago syndicate at the time. JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy, supposedly worked with Sam Giancana in the bootlegging industry during Prohibition. There have also been rumors that Giancana and the mob helped JFK win the 1960 election in the first place. JFK and Giancana also reportedly shared a mistress at different times, named Judith Campbell Exner. In fact, in 1975, Giancana was supposed to testify to a Senate committee about his role in a CIA assassination plot when he himself was assassinated. It makes you wonder if someone was trying to keep him quiet. But why even claim it then? Speaking of the CIA, let's move to our fourth and final theory, that the CIA was ultimately behind the assassination of JFK. Allen Dulles, the former head of the CIA, was actually on the Warren Commission, and, as mentioned before, the CIA withheld information from that commission. The CIA now refers to this as a, quote, benign cover-up, end quote. There are plenty of wild theories out there for possible motives for the CIA assassinating Kennedy. Some feel that JFK may have found out that the CIA had the plot to assassinate Fidel Castro, and the CIA felt threatened that Kennedy might have a different agenda or even disband them, so they plotted to assassinate him. Forensic historian Patrick Nolan wrote a book entitled CIA Rogues and the Killing of the Kennedys, in which he theorizes that 4 high-level agents not only planned the shooting, but 3 of them fired 4 shots during the assassination. People also feel that the CIA could have picked Oswald to carry out the hit, as he was a known communist and Russian sympathizer. Another possible CIA motive was that, after the failed Bay of Pigs invasion into Cuba, the CIA underwent personnel changes at the hand of Kennedy, which may have upset them. Also during that Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy refused to offer additional U.S. military support despite the CIA offering an umbrella of air protection. The explicit use of the word umbrella unlocks one controversial wrinkle in this CIA theory. This wrinkle, which is popular in conspiracy circles, is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted with a potential CIA operative, referred to as the Umbrella Man. In the Zapruder film and other photos taken at the time of the shooting, you can see one lone man holding an open umbrella above his head. At a glance, this may seem fairly innocuous, but there are 2 things that make it unusual. The first is that it wasn't raining. Nobody in the crowd, as far as pictures and media can tell, had an umbrella. The second and more dubious occurrence is the fact that Kennedy is struck by the first bullet at the moment his car passes in front of this Umbrella Man. Also at that moment, some believe that the Umbrella Man appears to lift his umbrella a foot or so. Both of these things in conjunction have led some to believe that the umbrella was a signal to another gunman, or that the umbrella itself was a spy-like weapon that could fire darts, perhaps explaining the slight hole in JFK's neck. Also suspicious is the fact that, after the shooting, while other spectators fled the scene, this Umbrella Man, along with another man, sat down next to each other on the curb, seemingly undisturbed. However, a possible explanation came from the purported Umbrella Man himself. This man was a man named Louis Stephen Witt, who came forward to the Senate committee to testify, even bringing the umbrella along with him. He claimed that the umbrella was a symbol of protest against JFK's father Joseph Kennedy. Witt was not a fan of Joseph Kennedy's appeasement policies when Joseph was ambassador to the court of St. James from 1938 to 1939. So, as a symbol of protest, Witt used an umbrella, a reference to the signature accessory of Neville Chamberlain, who promoted appeasement as Prime Minister of England. Witt also explains that he only opened the umbrella when he believed Kennedy could see it. And as odd as this may seem, throughout history, many people, both in England and America, have used umbrellas as a symbol of protest. I find it very weak. The supposed umbrella man, Witt, also claimed that the umbrella blocked his view of Kennedy being assassinated, thus explaining his apparent state of calm, or shock, as he described it, as he sat on the curb after the shooting. But some have claimed this isn't proven in the footage. Perhaps Louis Stephen Witt is, in fact, the umbrella man, and this is all a misunderstanding, or perhaps Witt is a puppet for the CIA to cover its tracks. Nobody can say definitively which is true. In the end, people continue to speculate on what truly have been in Dallas that day. So what do you think? Did Lee Harvey Oswald act alone? Were there other gunmen? Perhaps the mysterious umbrella man? And if there were, who were they working for? Will the horrific assassination of John F. Kennedy will remain unsolved?